Sky's the limit, right, is the title of the new report coming from the Carbon Tracker. Solar and wind power can meet global energy demand 100 times over, is one of the findings of this report. Can you tell us a little bit more, Kingsmill, about that finding?
Yeah, so what we did is we took data from Solaris, the solar energy consultancy, from the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in the United States for wind, from Mark Jacobson for solar rooftops. And we got it for every country in the world. We added it all up. And the answer is very clear that the total amount of renewable energy technical potential is about 7,000 petawatt hours, which is about 100 times our total demand right now. And I think whilst this exercise is fairly simple, what's interesting is that it doesn't really frame the debate at the moment. The debate about the future of energy is very much framed in terms of, well, we have a system and we've got this this renewable energy resource, but it's painful, it's difficult to extract, and it's not going to be easy. And we wanted to really reframe the debate and say, actually, you're thinking about this the wrong way around. There's loads of this stuff. It's everywhere. It's cheap and getting cheaper. And it's just going to be a question of directing this cheap energy into the system. And it's therefore, it's not to say it's going to be easy, it's not to say it's going to be without very significant resistance from the forces of the incumbency, but nevertheless, I think it's inevitable, as always, that this cheap energy resource will become the primary energy resource.
So do you think that this growth is a matter of a reduction in the cost of renewables?
Yeah, the absolutely primary driver of the growth in the renewables is this extraordinary positive feedback loop between growth and price decline. So in the fossil fuel sector, they really struggle to get prices down over time because they're constantly fighting decline rates. And in the renewable sector, the more you produce, the cheaper it gets. So it's just a very positive feedback loop. And I mean, as you know, the price of solar and wind has been falling by, in the case of solar, about 18% a year for the last decade. Incredible numbers. And what's really happened, and again, it's also all slightly obvious, but it's worth pointing out that we've kind of crossed a threshold in the last 2 or 3 years. It's almost like someone's opened a window to an entirely new world of clean, clean opportunity. And it's not just a sort of question of, well, it's going to compete a bit with the existing coal system. I mean, the existing coal system has just got no chance against technology like this, because it's not simply that it's cheaper, it's also local, it's cleaner, it's faster to deploy, doesn't kill people in such vast numbers as the fossil fuel sector. So yeah, it's quite an easy observation, really.
Do you think that we will soon reach a point at which we will see this growth, renewables growth, to push fossil fuels completely out of the electricity sector? And when do you estimate that this point will be?
So the key driver of this, or indeed any new technology, is the growth rate, obviously. And this technology has been growing at these exponential growth rates for 20 years, basically. And it's still growing, solar and wind, around 20% a year. Now, as you know, if you grow at 20% a year, then you're doubling once every 3.5 years. And let's imagine that the growth rate slows down a bit over time, let's say to 15%. If 15%, you're doubling once every 5 years, right? But you're still doubling very, very quickly. And if you just play with the maths, I mean, solar and wind, for example, at the moment are 10% of the global electricity sector, already 10% incidentally. One more doubling is 20, 2 more doublings in about 10 years is about 40. You see the logic of where we're heading. And it's often been said by incumbents, well, it can't be done because there's a whole series of constraints. But actually what's been happening is that each of those constraints has been solved and continues to be solved, which is why, as I say, this is not easy. It requires very significant investments. It requires very significant amounts of political shifts, as we're seeing in this Biden summit, and it requires new technology evolution in order to accommodate the intermittency of these technologies. But in the same way as electricity was rolled out across the world after 1900, also solving, incidentally, many more actually tougher problems, we will also solve these problems. And we have done so in the leading countries, and all that the world now has to do is to copy what the leading countries such as the United Kingdom or Denmark or Ireland or Lithuania have been doing.
Kingsmill, my last question for you. Which country and which region do you think and do you believe that it will have the greatest potential of harnessing the potential of solar and wind growth?
The answer to that one may be surprising. The answer I would suggest is the continent of Africa. because the peoples of Africa at the moment sadly lack access to much energy. The fossil fuel system hasn't done much for them. But of course, Africa is a solar and wind superpower. It's got 39% of the global total, and it's got hundreds of times as much renewables as it's got fossil fuels. And now this stuff is cheap. So for developed market countries which wish to drive development, and for those who are languishing in energy poverty, this is a kind of extraordinary opportunity to lift people out of poverty, out of energy poverty, and give them dignity and hope. So I think it's a great story for everyone, but it's a particularly good story for the continent of Africa.
Kingsmill, thank you very, very much for your time. It was really a pleasure talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitris.